Women Forward is a party that was founded in 2008 and won some 10,000 votes in its first electoral showing in 2009. In 2014, the party was a no-show due to lack of money. But 5 years later, they are back. And this time, they have hope that their message has found resonance with the voting public. I spoke to the leader of the party, Ngobese-Nxumalo, about their chances in 2019. Why aren't women voting for women parties?
We are new. I think it's only fair to actually say it's a new idea. And we know where women come from in terms of the politics. We live in a patriarchal society. Men have been seen as leaders for as long as we all remember. And it's a learning process. And it's just amazing that when we get to places where we explain who we are, we don't even take a minute to explain who we are and people are on board. So it's the fact that it has not been happening, not because women don't want to vote. And I think for women who are not voting, I think they're just sitting and watching to see what's going on with this. And I'm sure we're going to pick up as we move on.
Yeah. No, but if women voted in blocks, I mean, South African women outnumber the men. They're 51% of the population. And 55% of the registered voters are women.
Yes.
Therein lies a win. I do not understand why women are not in power.
No. Understood. Let me say this. As I said it to you, historically, men have been leaders. We are a small entity. We didn't have money to market ourselves. We only use social media. And most of these things, you're in the business where you actually need to be known for people to interact with you. Now, it's limited to social media, as I actually said. We didn't have the money to do that. We only had money to register. We didn't have money to market ourselves.
Do you have money now?
We don't. We still
So
don't.
how are you surviving now?
Donations, people here and there, 5,000 rands for petrol, this and that, but there's no money. I mean, and I'm being very honest.
And I appreciate your honesty,
that's
but
right, yeah.
much of our political system is really influenced by the rands and cents. The bigger the budget, the bigger the the voting block, if you will. And it kind of shows because business gravitates towards those that are seen to be having
Influence.
a big market share.
Agreed. Yeah.
How do we get women forward there?
We will get there.
How?
We might actually have a few seats this time, but next time we will. It will go with a lot of marketing in between the voting seasons. It will go with a lot of us talking about ourselves between now and the next 5 years, or even the next 2 years before the municipal elections. So there is a lot of traction right now happening on the ground in terms of talking about Women Forward. People are actually even quoting us on big debates. People are quoting us on radio and things like that. But it's only happening now because people are just beginning to hear about Women Forward, and we appreciate that. Now, as time goes, I think as the debate goes towards how it is that we actually found ourselves here, where we are going, who we represent, I think things are going to start changing a little bit. And particularly young voters. Young voters are quite interesting, both male and female. They're not attached to the past.
Well, actually, when you talk about young voters, South Africa is really a country of young people.
It's true, yes. Yeah.
And most of those young people are young women.
It's true.
How are you doing in that regard? Do you have somebody that young women look at your party and relate to such a personality or such a message?
Oh, yes,
How are you wooing them?
We do have young people who speak on our behalf on several platforms, actually, as we're going towards the elections. Provincial leadership here is young. I think she's even less than 30 here in Gauteng. And in many other structures, we have young women who are actually speaking the language that we hear young people speak. But I said earlier on, it's an issue of time as people get to know us and as they hear the young people speak, not just the language, but to the issues of what young people are grappling with. And we're not talking about your normal gender issues. We're actually talking about the
QI community.
Community. And that has actually been left to its own devices. Nobody has actually said, but these are our children. There is absolutely no way a mother can throw a child in the trash. I mean, it
just because
doesn't
of
make
his
sense.
sexual orientation.
Absolutely.
Doesn't make sense.
And I have issues with that. I have issues with the fact that church has thrown our children outside. And I find that totally objectionable. So I think it's very important for us as mothers to stand up and say, this cannot go on. It's gone on for so long. Enough is enough. We are going to stand up and actually protect our children for who they are and give them platforms to grow to become the citizens they were meant to become.
This might be interesting to you, but I just found out today that, I mean, for instance, the age group 19 to 25, registration there has fallen by some whopping 8%. Does that make you worry about the youth participation, particularly when it comes to the forthcoming election? Because like I say about women, but if the youth voted as a bloc too, they would be in charge.
They would be in charge. I think, let me actually put the blame on us, as people are not able to hear what the youth really actually needs. Youth is despondent at the moment. All of us, let me just say, all of us are despondent in South Africa. Women are despondent. Now, when you find mothers in the situation where we find them, the majority of them right now, struggling, right, with making a living. And I mean it that way, in that the marginalized people are actually women who are struggling with their children. The very same group that you're talking about, their mothers can't put food on the table. They are struggling. They have minimum budgets to actually run their households. Take that strife and put it on the very same young person who's also trying to make a living. It's double strife. Yeah. So you understand what we're actually dealing with here. We're dealing with a spectrum of issues that affect not just the young people, but their families, where you find single mothers who just don't know what to do with what they don't have. Let me put it like that. Now, Women Forward actually says we need to correct that so that we are able to speak to not only the young people, but include the mothers in the discussion, because you need to hear what their strife is. You need to hear what their problems are, so that even when we look at policies, it's not the issue of saying, I'm going to answer it with a grant. What are you going to do to empower the very same women between the ages of 35 to 60? Who are the mothers of the very same children you're talking about?
And people
need skills.
And people have argued that that's one of the failures of the current system that we have, that if you're living on a grant, we don't necessarily know how it enables you to have upward mobility in life, to move from a position of receiving a grant to creating something. And therein lies the burden of most black women in this country. They continue to be at the bottom end of the scale. But if I'm going to think about I guess one of the falsehoods that's created by the name Women Forward is that is there space for men? And I understand that you are taking men, but you want men to listen more. Do you think that's enough to get, I mean, clearly you're going to need to have a group of men who support this woman-led cause. So do you think you're doing enough in that regard, getting men to vote for?
As a matter of fact, we have men who support this cause. We do. It's men who understand that the cause right now has to give women space to speak, women to bring their ideas on the table, and listen to how the mothers have struggled for so long to get us to where we are.
I'm going to ask the question, what are men doing when this is happening?
They help us with the funding, where we actually need the money. They help us with the messaging sometimes, because we don't get it right all the time. We need to have messaging that is going to make sure that it does not leave them out. We actually have to make sure that they listen, because they are a sounding board for some of the things that you actually put on the table. We have talked about the issue of castration. We took it to them also to say, how would that actually sound if we were to actually put it on the table?
But don't you think it's a misnomer, though? I mean, that kind of extreme sense of justice, if you will, about castration.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, you're preaching tolerance, for the LGBTQI community. So I'm confused.
Let me tell you.
Okay.
There is nothing more extreme than the numbers of rape that we hear about, femicide that we hear about every year. There's nothing more extreme than that. I mean, just yesterday, I was on Facebook looking at a 22-year-old who was stabbed by a boyfriend to death, 22-year-old. Ex-boyfriend, for that matter.
That's right.
Does that not sound extreme to you? No, it doesn't, because you are used to hearing it. The minute we want to castrate just one man, everyone is jumping up, and just one man, to set an example, everybody is jumping up and down to actually say, but how can you do that? How do people plan? Because I think rape is planned. How do people plan to rape a 6-month-old, a 3-month-old, and tell me that's not extreme? Now, when an equal measure of justice, as far as I'm concerned, because we are going to make sure that becomes law, comes to counteract that, people are jumping up and down. And I know it won't even take 2 or 3 men to be castrated for us to see the numbers going down, because I believe very few men will actually want to part with their own parts. Now, what is important here is that we need to counter the scourge with an equal amount of force for us to actually be taken seriously. We are tired of taking people to prisons all the time, and then they come out with the same agenda to continue on the same path, and people say, no, but women, you have to be soft, you have to be this. We can't do that.
So I'm going to ask a controversial question, only because of who you are in your background. You are the granddaughter of Chief Albert Luthuli. One may ask the question, the ANC Women's League has called for the castration of rapists too. So why are you not part of the African National Congress Women's League? Why are you not part of that movement? Why is there a need to establish women forward?
Where we are right now, we are independent of thought. We are doing things the way we think we can influence women's views about themselves, where they are. We believe that the ANC is doing the best it can, and I think there is space for others to come in and open space for further inclusion of other people in the bigger scheme of things. Now, what has actually happened so far, we have seen poor women dealt with in terms of the grants that I'm talking about. We are coming with other suggestions of what we can actually do to include, women in the economic space and all. So I don't see the contradiction here. I see Women Forward as an extended space where women can actually do what they've always wanted, maybe limited in how they can actually do it. That is why we have a community-based approach that says we are not going to deal with the top-down approach of government. We want to actually do government from the bottom up. Even as we're talking to the women out there, say, women, you are the ones who are going to suggest to us what you actually want in your own areas, instead of us coming and say, we're going to build a school. What if you don't need a school, you need something else? So we're doing a bottom-up approach in terms of development, where when you do a bottom-up approach, you actually say, you go to the communities, they decide what they actually want, they tell government what they actually want done, not the other way around. They tell government what they want done, how it's going to be done, who they are going to include in the projects, other than the way where government comes in with projects with contractors from outside, bringing in people from outside to do the project when they can be done locally where people are located.
Nana, you are a smaller party, and I mean this with like utmost respect, in terms of the party itself, facing your second election. You received some 10,000 votes in 2009. What would qualify as a successful candidate, as a successful campaign right now? How many votes are you targeting? And most especially where? And I imagine that you must have like areas in which you expect more support than others, i.e. Limpopo.
Limpopo, Northwest, Free State, KZN, Western Cape, Mpumalanga.
That's all the provinces.
Yes.
What would qualify this as a successful campaign? How many votes are you targeting?
I have no idea. I will not lie to you.
You haven't said it.
I have no idea. Okay. Well, target is 400 seats in parliament, but that's not possible. Yeah, rather 200 seats in parliament. That's not possible. But let's talk reality now. We're a small party, no resources. Any seats that we'll get will allow us an opportunity to continue establishing ourselves, making our voice heard in different parts of the country. We are not going to stop now. We are going to make sure that even on the municipal elections, we actually go in there with the energy that we actually have created on the ground, so that we are able to give those women who are sitting in the margins of our society a voice, allow them to be the ones to speak for themselves, other than us telling them what is going to be done for them.
I just thought about something when you were talking about the financial difficulties of your party. And I think about the fact that you need some, 604,000 rands to compete in this particular election on a national and each and every single province. That's a lot of money, especially because it doesn't, you still need more money on top to actually do the campaigning. Do you think the democratic process tends to how do I say this? That capital can keep the democratic process away from people. Do you think people can be priced out of the debate? Essentially, that's what Women Forward was in 2014. You had no money.
Yeah, it's. I guess I would like to agree with the IC that if you were to open it up for free for everyone,
everyone would be there.
You understand what I'm saying?
But now, is it too much?
What it also says is that maybe the system has to be relooked into how it actually operates. I'm not too familiar with all the political systems, but right now, what actually happens, and I've heard, is that once you get a seat or you get, anything, you get your money back. So if you have borrowed the money, you can always return it to whoever you have borrowed it from. But it actually, they take you more seriously. It means you put your effort behind the money that you've actually put in. Yeah, so I think it's worth the process.
In 2009, the biggest nemesis facing women forward was the presidency and the candidature of Jacob Zuma to be president. Right now, it's 2019. Cyril Ramaphosa, according to an Ipsos poll, is more popular among women than men. How does that make you feel? How do you think you...
I'm not aware of that, so I would not be able to answer to that. But one thing I know for sure, the ANC has done a wonderful job in making sure that Cyril runs their campaign effectively. And money does play a huge role in that. And I salute them for that. But it's Cyril running. I don't know about the ANC.
Nana, thank you very much for your time.
Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so
much. All the best
much.
on the campaign trail. And I hope you get as many votes as possible.
No, thank you so much. We really appreciate this.
Thank you.
We are always thankful for people who actually are able to listen to what we are.
Well, that's where we leave it for this edition of Political Capital. We're back on your screen this Thursday as we build up to May 8th.